Say, write what you love. If you have a passion for your own work, put the passion behind it. Get the elements together. If you have a partner like my wife, then you can bounce ideas back and forth on each other to see how you want to go with it, what direction you want to do.
And know your characters. I mean, there's plenty of writing tools of like interviewing your own characters. And when we write organically, a lot of times it feels like our characters have come alive.
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. My guests today have been building for 20 years. John and Lisa Goodson are a husband and wife author duo who have constructed an entire mythology from the ground up. Immortal tree spirits, reincarnating demigods, 20,000 years of human history told from the inside out. They write organically, design their own covers, create AI-generated character videos to bring their worlds to Instagram, and trace the whole thing back to some Death Clock rock operas. So one of their most recent books, The Sleeping Giant, drops you into Pearl Harbor on December 7th, alongside characters who have already survived Troy and many other incidents throughout history. So we're going to be chatting about their whole series, in addition to that book, and their lore, their authority, everything in between. This is Authority on Demand, and John, Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation. We're so excited to have you on. Let's learn a little bit about yourselves before we dive into the book. So, tell our audience, how did this all get started? If a husband and wife duo sitting down to write a book together, what sparked the inspiration?
Well, she started us back in high school. She had like a little behind the kind of a small beginning. I guess you could say. She can explain a little bit more.
Well, there's certain characters that have yet to fully come into our series because it's the next group of Lakewood arc of it. But they've made a somewhat of an appearance in one of the books we've already published. But so I had them with me in high school and the whole concept of it in high school. And I was bringing in the tree part. But all of a sudden I mentioned it to him. And then all of a sudden everything exploded. Like there's certain characters that didn't exist until he started getting involved. So our world really gets it was almost like a big bang. Like I had the beginning of it. I had the nugget. And all of a sudden speaking with him was like, boom, here's a universe.
Understood. I love that. So it's just kind of like you had like the seeds to it, but then like when you teamed up together, it came to fruition. So I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, for me it was she was setting the one story in like the mid 2020s, and I kept thinking, well, what is the motivator behind why these characters are doing this? What was their past? How far back did we go? What is the reason why they are right now? What was their backstory? So I kind of started working on backstories and developing those.
Understood. I love that though. Like it kind of like where one part ends, the other part picks up, and then all together you're able to form that, into what we have here today. And I think it's interesting too, because you guys actually came from two different backgrounds. A kid from Idaho, a kid from Hawaii. Do you think that your backgrounds influence the creative process at all?
Well, he's been in Idaho since he was 9. So technically he's still Idahoan for the most part.
But yeah. I think it's a common like of certain genres. Like we like Lord of the Rings. We like a lot of the, some histories, like medieval history, all that stuff like that. It's just a combination of just, meshing and just finding a common like for these things.
And there's more of a generational gap between us because he's Gen X, I'm millennial. So there is that his generation being known for pessimism, my generation being known for idealism. So I mean, even that in itself is kind of give and take. We can kind of look at things from two different perspectives and really give our characters the full gamut. Not to mention my psychology degree helps somewhat a bit too with psychoanalyzing our characters.
Understood. Well, hey, I'm glad you brought that up too, though, because whether it be like your age or your background, it all kind of accumulated to this. And I mean, John, I mean, you also have like a background in arts too, which is really cool. So tell us about that because you design the covers, you work on AI generated character videos, which I've seen before. So how is your identity as a creator also a visual storyteller? How do they like mesh together?
Well, I have a degree in graphic design that I got back probably when you were a little kid, but I got that, and then I use that knowledge and the new tools that are coming out because um, Lisa did a lot of the building of the newer covers with the AI and Photoshop help and everything. We kind of gave back and forth feedback on it, like said, did you like this the way it is? You like that? Based upon because when I was going through graphic design, it was still during a time where we were still using pen and paper and early using of computers and everything of that nature. So when I look at a piece, I kind of think of it like as it is like a pen and paper format still. And then when it comes to the AI stuff, I did that's more like an introduction to some of the characters to kind of get you an idea of what they basically look like. You can kind of use your own imagination. Certain scenes from the books I like to throw out there, just kind of little teasers type stuff, you know. So it helps. I think a visual kind of helps a little better than just kind of a descriptor in a way too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially in today's day and age where everyone's glued to their phones, they see something like, oh, like what was that video? Let me learn more about it. And it's just like another aspect, another pillar, if you will, like to add to the brand yourself that you've built here. And I say brand lightly because it's really just a world that you've created. But kind of driving it into like that authority aspect by having all these different areas that you're promoting the book, that definitely I think helps. So great that you're doing that. I think it's a very creative way to do it. And if you're listening today, I mean, why not dabble with some of these AI apps? I believe it was the Sora that you used.
I primarily Sora. I do occasionally use Grok. It makes it because Sora sometimes won't let you use. It's been letting me use my drawings, but it doesn't let you use human faces very much. But lately, it's been kind of letting me in there. But I'll use Sora, but then sometimes I use Grok, and sometimes I use the Gemini just to kind of see which one gives me what I want.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess like a lesson to be learned, dabble around and figure out what works best for you.
Yep.
So we've had a lot of background information here. Let's get into the book itself. I guess before we get into the Sleeping Giant particularly, which I do have a couple of questions on because it is your most recent book, but the premise of the books itself, I mean, give the audience how quickly can we umbrella it? I know there's a lot of world building here. Let me know.
Reincarnating tree spirits. They're demigods. I mean, that really what is the core nugget of the story, other than the fact, we've got red oak, so there's a lot of acorns in there too. But that's me being a punter. But at the same, but I'll let you go in a moment. Sorry, I'm talking over you. But yeah, that's really what the gist of it is, because our characters are having multiple lives, and so when they awaken to the true being that they are, and they have the memories of all these lives. But before they awaken, they're a whole new person. So we have that melding of old and new each time we have a new life. Mind you, in the most recent one, Archie's already awake when we begin the book. But you can go ahead and add.
Well, I was just saying that because it starts out with in the very first book, The Bloody Truth, where it's a tragedy happens, and it kind of is the beginning point of how everything goes going forward. How changes the dynamic, changes the people, the characters in there, and as I've developed the characters further along, I've kind of tied some of the characters almost like into an emotion, like there's this one character called Adira, who's a shield maiden, and she makes a protective dome made out of amber mist that nothing can penetrate. But in the beginning of the book, something did, and she blames herself constantly for failing. And then that's kind of an emotion of not being able to protect yourself or protect you have when you think you're so strong, but you can't. So, and then you have Ember Greyoak, who is outwardly very just no emotions, no. You can't really read her, but she's very devoted to her lord and everything. And so I just kind of think of different characters or different aspects of emotions in a way.
I like that. And it really seems to humanize them too by giving them each of those emotions and feelings behind them. And to be clear, do these characters continue on through each of the episodes in these saga, or is it like new characters each time, just so like everyone's clear? Because this is all different time periods, right? So
Reincarnation.
yeah, it's all the same.
They're all the same characters. You have Sandra, you have Lunadra, you have all the main characters. They just reincarnate into new bodies and carry on their mission of what was given to them.
Adira that he had mentioned in World War II, she's working as a nurse, as Regina, in an underground hospital in London after the Blitzkrieg. So it's setting her in that position to where she's also afraid to use her shield because of what happened the life before, or what had happened when she was in Japan. So she has that fear that if she uses her shield and the wrong people see it, they might try to make her use it
for destructive purposes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, I like the premise because, by doing so, you're able to keep the same loved characters that every audience member enjoys reading about, but then also something new. It's a completely different time period, completely different events. I love that. So when it comes to Sleeping Giant, this one opens Pearl Harbor, December 7th. There's no warm up. I mean, I was looking there, I was like, okay, wow, like we're getting right into the action. So why start there? What did it feel like to write that scene?
Well, I like to start off the books to bring attention. Like you don't want to be like some books start off, they kind of sound slow, character introductions, kind of get you to know the people, everything like that. And the way we design these books is we want them to be independently work on their own, but also a continuation of the book prior. So technically, if you've read from the series beginning to this part, you would know the characters by now at this series. But if you're not, I introduce them in an action scene to where it kind of shows off that they're already know what to do in a situation, already know how to handle a situation. They're not really kind of by surprise. They just know what to do because of thousands of years of experience. So I start off with that because I think it's exciting to start off with action, and I think it works.
And we have eye colors, so their unique eye colors differentiate who we have. So when we start saying emerald eyes, if they don't have black cracks in them, we know it's Sandra, not Tekdra, because Tekdra's eyes have changed over time, but that's because he's the brother that betrayed everyone and ends up becoming an antagonist in the series after the first book. Yeah. So it's really brothers fighting against each other as well. And then sometimes we throw Kiltra in there, but that's the little sister.
Understood. But I totally get what you're saying with all this, and to kind of tie it back to the beginning there, yeah, super important to go right into the details and not just redundant character introductions. Like we're right in the action, so that's really, really cool. Let's talk a little bit about the themes behind it. The themes of the song "Blazing Star," which you sent me, John. It's very present in this book. It's ancient, blazing power, rising in a moment of extreme darkness, a new force gathering to fight back. Tell us about how consciously these themes wove themselves into this book. What would you say?
Well, the brother Sandra, who in the beginning, he was like second in command, but he didn't really want to get too involved. He was kind of like, okay, I'll do what I need to, but my older brother, he's doing the work. I'll do what he says, like that. But then when they have the betrayal, and his brother now is not with them anymore, and he's their enemy. He's become the de facto leader, and he really doesn't like to do it. He knows he has to do it. It's his responsibility now, but he's
the reluctant
leader, basically. And so the themes in those songs are basically how every time that they have a new book, a new incarnation, he's leading, he ends up either killing or being killed. And so he's constantly going through different things that I think tie into that about,
heavy lay the head, the crown, heavy lay the crown.
No, heavy lays the head that wears a crown.
There we go. That's what I was trying to say. Because that's the thing is, by the time we're getting into World War II, and then later on, the one we're writing right now, which is set in Vietnam, he's really getting to the point of just being overly just fatigued.
He's tired of it. He's
Correct.
tired of the leadership.
So when he finally passes the baton to someone, which will happen in a future book, it makes sense because he's been the reluctant leader for thousands of years at this point. So as soon as he has a chance to pass it to someone else, he's like, I'm not taking it back. It's yours now. Whether you like it or not, you're the leader.
He's all, peace out.
I'll be your advisor, but you're the leader now.
Kind of, going into leadership then, I mean, this is something that we definitely speak about on the show too. And I know this is a character, right? But tell us about that. Like, what does it mean to actually take on like a leadership role, whether you want it or not, which your character has? I mean, if you're writing about it, I'm sure that's something that you've thought about in terms of like the writing process a bit. So tell us, I mean, fictional or not, leadership is leadership. What would you say?
Well, leadership for me in a way is almost like parenting, and because you're responsible for your needs are kind of put aside because you're responsible for those around you and below you, because they've taken on what the mother character calls the mantle of the steward of humanity. So he's not only fighting to keep him and his what we call the companions safe, he's also trying to fight to save and keep humanity safe. And in the earlier books, he used to like take on like giant armies and use them to protect humanity. And as time got on, he couldn't do that anymore because people back in the day, they believed in magic. But as humanity progressed, religions changed, religions this and that came in, people's belief in magic was no longer there. And he couldn't lead thousands of people into armies to try to protect the world. So then eventually he became, he wanted to so protect it, but he would do it in the background in a way. Like instead of being like the leader of 1,000 men, he would be like a general in the army or a sergeant or a lieutenant or something like that, and use his influence to try to protect the world that way.
And in this one, he's a sergeant of the Redoak Raiders, and in World War II.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we also had prior to this the werewolves. So our werewolves are completely different. They are created from a virus that was found from a different realm, because Ember was doing some realm jumping when she had the Mindbreaker amulet, and it's like a fungus on their trees, and so he infects the king of the redwoods, and that ends up spreading throughout the redwoods. So only redwoods can be werewolves currently. And so when it
comes to the leadership stuff,
leadership too, because if you think about it, we have Elderic, which is the son of Grenfrond, who's taking over the mantle of leadership, the mantle of the king of the redwoods, because Grenfrond had followed Tukdra. He is basically the new king of the redwoods. We have a split between redwoods, those who are following the old king, those who are following the new king.
He's trying to put the dynamic of not only is it a thing for leadership for Sandra to take over the mantle of leading the group and leading humanity, protecting humanity, she's also breaking off on one of the former companions who was the king of the redwoods, who betrayed them too, and now he still sees himself as a king, but the redwoods have a new king, and so it's a different shifting dynamic when it comes to leadership too. But
and the werewolves going poof.
Yeah,
they end up running. Sorry.
No, I love that, and I appreciate you like teaching us a little bit of the lore behind all of this too. I think that if this sounds intriguing to you, everyone, you have to check out the book to really get the full picture of everything here. But I definitely see where you're going from there, and it's an amazing example for how it can kind of tie into our own lives, even though like this is also, of course, in more of a fantasy action realm. But yeah, I love that. But I think this is also a great point to transition into the creative process behind this all. One question I have for you, I mean, of course, this does span thousands of years in history, the course of all these different books. So I'm curious to know, how do you hold that continuing in your hands all at once? I'm sure that there must be a lot of like plot points, character traits, details to keep track of. Do you have a book or spreadsheets or anything like that might keep it in line?
I have spreadsheets. I have spreadsheets with their names for each of the different books, like who they are in that book. Their eye colors, of course, differentiated. But when it comes to like the core of the character, that's more organic to where we actually just know. Like, we know Adira is a shield maiden. We know that she's so focused on protecting others that when she fails, it's almost like another piece of her snaps off of herself. And so she's just kind of almost crumbling because she in her eyes, keeps failing to protect those she loves throughout all of her lives.
And then Sundra with his continual self-doubt of, am I a good leader? Should I be doing this? I don't really want to do this. And then you have his wife, who's she's name is Lunadra, and she's like his counsel. Like if he starts doubting himself, she'll talk with him and make him feel better. And then you have the brothers, which are the archers, Alexander and Reynard, who are they're just the comedy, I guess you could say, the generals of the Red Oak Army and Red Oak Raiders, but they're also like the comedy of the group where they like, crack jokes at each other and all that stuff going through that routine. And then we have Sigmund the archer, he's very stoic and very like yes sir, no sir, type of thing. And so they all kind of work together to make it a family, but also a cohesive unit. And so those are the characters that we keep, the base characters in our mind, to keep continually, would he do this? Would he do that? Would that person do this? And we talk about it. And then you have, the Emperor Greyok, who is the 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 one that is basically, she does what Tucker tells her to do. She's straight up. Like I said, I called her an evil female Vulcan, essentially. No emotions, no, she just does what she's told, basically.
But sometimes she does it she still sometimes finds loopholes.
That's little things we
She might do what she's told, but she might not do it from the way that Tucker wanted her to do it. So I mean, she does have a little bit of wiggle room in there when it comes to her character too. So.
Yeah.
Understood. One thing I'm noticing is that the way that you two talk about this world, I think it's not only sweet, of course, but also it shows that you're experts in what you've created here. And that says a lot. There's passion behind it. There's all like the inner workings of it down to the details. Like we'll find a way around it too. Like I love those little comments, So I can not only see that this is something that's greatly benefited your relationship, but also your standing too, just by creating this world. It must feel great to have all these books under your name after all this time.
Yeah.
Would you say that you agree with that, or if there's any significant benefits you've seen to having these books out on the shelves?
I like to have the idea that we contributed more to society than just being the parents going to work, doing the stuff. Like we've put out a universe and a reality that others can join in and see and experience, and maybe hopefully open their eyes to certain things and make it to where it's something that benefits humanity kind of down the way. I kind of want to see these go along the lines. So you can see like with like, the Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, the Tolkien stuff, some of these other fantasy kind of novels that, 100 years from now, they're still making TV shows or books, fan fiction books or whatever like that,
And we don't shy away from history. So, I mean, there's certain things in our books where to the modern palate are very much so not welcome. But at that historical time, the ideology was completely different. And so, yes, our characters tend to be more enlightened and not as easily led astray by humanity of the time, because they are tree spirits and they have that knowledge they get when they awaken. But there's still going to be things like, Redemption is set in Japan, Edo, Japan for the first half. Second half, it's Civil War, United States. So you can already kind of get the idea of the types of themes that are going to be involved in that second half of that book. So, I mean, it's where there's certain usages being used because it was of that time.
You try to keep it period.
Try to keep it period, but our characters, of course, don't like what's being said. But yes.
Yeah. Right. Understood. So yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying from all of that. And I love that you've shared that with us too, because again, like you spent so much time on this 20 years and now it's out, and anybody can experience the journey that you've gone on in addition to the journey you take the characters on too. So I love that a lot. But it doesn't stop here. You also have a new series that you're working on. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, it's the dragon books.
Well,
can you share a little bit about that?
Forest and Sand. We only have the first one done. There's going to be a total of 4 for that one. It's not nearly as big of a saga as Red Oak, because the Red Oak's probably going to go on for another 50 years for all we know.
How we started this one, though, we were driving around one day and we started talking about science, and we talk about the Earth wobble and how it wobbled to where it turned the Sahara Desert to forest, and then it wobbled again. Now it's back to desert, and because of the way that it rotates. And we started talking about, well, how would we do that? We started thinking, well, what if we have these dragons, and then what if they have a competition every 10,000 years where they have to fight for who has dominance over whether it turns to the forest or stays a desert. So we've made this whole tournament up. We have like champions from the sand, champions from the forest, and they have the phoenix, which constantly is again reincarnation theme, but the phoenix dies and gets reborn. They have to find the phoenix, and then they have to bring the phoenix to this pyramid in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and whoever gets to the top of the pyramid first wins the tournament. And they get 10,000 years of either sand or forest. So right. Kind of the premise behind that.
Except they're humanoid dragons and a humanoid phoenix. So they're also blending in with humanity. So it's another like hidden civilization within civilization. Except they live, like the phoenix lives 10,000 years per, an incarnation. Before they burn and are reborn as babies. And then the dragons live like...
They die when the phoenix dies.
The one that there's still
champion.
Like 20, 40,000. Yeah, we're getting into like numbers on that. So they're much more longer lived than humans. So it's kind of more along the lines of they remember all of human history because they have lived longer than human history.
Yeah.
Understood. Well, I love that. And I love how, inspiration could strike no matter where you are and kind of flourish into something completely new, one that can be added to your name, another series under your belt. Love that. So, well, as we begin to wrap up the show, I'm curious to know if you have any tips you'd like to offer the audience today, anything that we haven't touched upon about. It could be about like the writing world or the collaboration aspect, perhaps authority building. What would you say? What should we leave the audience off with? I'll open the floor to you too.
I say write what you love, right? What you have a passion for, because, like we've had discussions with you about how when you do some of your things, you don't find joy in writing stuff for a manual, right? You don't find joy in writing things for other people as much. But if you have a passion for your own work, put the passion behind it, get it, do your research, take your time, really kind of practice, get it going, get the elements together. If you have a partner like my wife, then you can bounce ideas back and forth on each other to see how you want to go with it. What direction do you want to do? Even if they're not a writing partner, they can still help you or think that. But get input, get some ideas. I've been doing beta readers every so often. And we do occasional things online to try to get ideas, to get feedback. But I would just say, write what you really love to write.
And know your characters. I mean, there's plenty of writing tools of like interviewing your own characters. And when we write organically, a lot of times it feels like our characters have come alive. Sometimes I end up, writing and all of a sudden I'm like taking like a complete like U-turn or like a fork off the road. I'm like, how did I end up here?
You start speaking to you
because the character decided to go a different path than maybe where I initially meant it to go. And so it's sometimes a surprise to me as a writer on the journey, because I'm like, oh, well, this is interesting. And this actually works out better. So
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, I love that. That's the best way to run with it too. And I think at the end of the day, what we can definitely learn from this podcast today is not just to try what you know or to kind of go with the flow with it, but just follow your passions. I feel like that's kind of the lesson I've learned from hearing you two talk. Like I mentioned before, you're ecstatic about every aspect of the world, and hearing you two go on about it, I think that's something that in itself should be drawing any listener today to the book to check out this world, learn more about it. So I absolutely love that. Where is the best place for everyone to find these books once they get into it? I know we have Amazon. Any other sites that we should be checking out?
Pretty much Amazon at this point. We looked into different publishing houses and different things, and they have some criteria. Like if you've already put your book on Amazon, they don't want that particular book. But mostly Amazon right now is where we're at, and we always encourage people to read it, leave reviews. Anything helps us as well. And any feedbacks and things they'd like to see, but yeah, it's just look for LJJAY Goodson, GOODSON as the author name, and we have all of our books under that, and read them, enjoy them, and let us know what you think.
I love that. Yeah, guys, we're going to put the links in the description box of this podcast today as well. So easy to click on over and check out what's in store. Thank you so much for bringing this here with us today. Everyone, again, check out The Sleeping Giant and the entire series on Amazon. And for every listener who recognized themselves in this conversation, maybe the gap between reality and fiction and building something completely new for yourself, well, Authority on Demand is where that might change. Check out more of our episodes and learn more about how to establish your own authority. Jay and Lisa, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or a leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.